Transition Technical Assistance webinar. Just want to make sure that all our participants are signed in for the correct, make sure you're in the correct session. Again, thank you for joining us. We want to welcome you to today's Secondary Transition Technical Assistance webinar. I'm Dr. Cheryl James, the LEA Supervisory Monitoring Specialist, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Carmen Rulon, the Director of Training and Technical Assistance for the Division of Data, Accountability, and Research. Here we have our agenda. These are some of the things we're going to cover today. We're doing an overview of secondary transitions, a review of supports and programs, processes that are being implemented to improve our secondary transition compliance. We're going to connect the dots and review agency requirements, transition services timelines, a new tool that we're really excited to share with you today, the Secondary Transition Planning Tool, and then we'll move to next steps and closing remarks. OSSE has been focusing a great deal of effort to do more collaborative work and implementation of additional strategies as well as supports that are focused on secondary transition compliance. We know that we are consistently achieving secondary transition compliance when we have hit our targeted goals, and that's when we know that we are truly supporting the transition of our students with disabilities. On this next slide here, you see indicator 13 results over time, which are secondary transition compliance rates. OSSE requires that we be 100% compliant around secondary transition. If you look at this chart, you'll see in 2009, our transition compliance rate, we were just at 3%. So you know that's a long way from the 100% mark. And moving up through the years, fiscal year 2014, we hit 70%. So the table is showing our overall compliance rate since 2009. So as you can see, we've made some progress, but we still have a lot of work to do. And we recognize that, which is why we're putting in a lot of focus and energy around trying to improve that. On this slide, we have our compliance rates for 2014, fiscal year 2014, and these are each of the items that we monitor for around secondary transition. And as I said, you can see here that we haven't hit the 100% compliance rate for these items, but our rates are very close to the mark with the exception of one area. And if you look at the bottom, the one that's highlighted, that's the one that we still got quite a bit of work to do. Representatives from participating agencies invited to IEP meetings. Unfortunately, we are only at the 50% mark. But we're confident that the strategies that we've been implementing that have been aimed at improving our secondary compliance with several of these strategies that are specifically targeting this particular compliance item. And we're hoping that our rates are going to definitely continue to increase. Now, transition services. These services are a coordinated set of activities for a child with disabilities. Again, it's designed to be within a results-oriented process, and this is just what the reg said, that is focused on improving the academic and functional achievement of the child with a disability to facilitate the child's movement from school to post-school activities. And this includes post-secondary education, vocational education, integrated employment, including supported employment, continuing and adult education, adult services, independent living, or community participation. Again, the thing that I want to point out to you is that transition services are activities that support a student's movement from school to post-school activities for education, employment, and independent living. Transition services also include instruction, related services, community experiences. Again, these are things this is just straight from the federal regulation, but you can see that the federal transition requirement is pretty broad and it's mandated, and there are a lot of things that highlight the importance of why interagency collaboration does play a major role in achieving successful transition outcomes. So that's one of the reasons we've been doing a lot of collaborative work with, LEAs as well as other agencies, and a lot of things that we're doing, because it does take a lot of collaboration to make sure that we have successful transition outcomes for our students. On this slide here, you'll see that there are quite a bit of transition services and things that fall under that umbrella, including instruction, assessment, post-secondary education, vocational training, integrated employment, adult services, community participation, independent living. These are just some of the examples of transition services and things that fall under that umbrella. Again, I want to point out that the selection of transition services must be made based upon the student's needs, the student's strengths, preferences, and their interests. Some of the things that OSSE has been doing to improve secondary transition compliance rates include webinars, LEA on-site, technical assistance, nuts and bolts of secondary transitions. I said to you earlier that we've been focused on and implementing several strategies and programs been aimed at improving our secondary transition compliance rates. And these are just a few of them: the webinars, the training materials. There have been quite a few trainings here at OSSE, and I mentioned the nuts and bolts that's there. We've been doing focus monitoring as well as other collaborative efforts with RSA, the Secondary Transition Community of Practice, the Secondary Transition. We've done community fairs. And this recent tool, the last one that's highlighted there on the screen in green, as I said earlier, this is the one that we're real excited to roll out to you today, the Secondary Transition Planning Tool, because this is just another tool that OSSE has developed to assist you with secondary transition planning, which can lead to improving our secondary transition compliance. Again, I want you to keep in mind that our OSSE requirement is 100% compliance for secondary transition. So I'm now going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Rulon to discuss the secondary transition planning tool.
Good morning, everyone. So the purpose of the planning tool, it was created to assist LEAs with monitoring key transition events for students. The tool provides data on the transition plan status of students and whether they have that plan in place, and with a countdown to the student's upcoming 16th birthday. The tool includes student-level data and recommended timelines for each key event in the secondary transition process. The planning tool is aligned to the Transition Services Flowchart, which is provided to LEAs to help them through the transition process for coordinating services with adult agencies. I'm now going to exit out of the PowerPoint presentation and just display the flowchart for you so that you can see what this flowchart, what it looks like, and this will be emailed to you after the presentation. But here we're trying to give LEAs just an idea of and recommended timeline for conducting certain events to help students to put in transition plans in place. So this is the flowchart here, and again, this will be emailed to you after the presentation. So these timelines, recommended timelines for transition services, we recommend that 90 days before the student's IEP meeting that the LEA conducts age-appropriate transition assessments for the student. 45 days before the IEP meeting, we recommend that the LEA consider, based on assessment outcomes, if RSA services are likely to be needed for the student to meet their post-secondary goals. 30 days before the IEP team meeting, we recommend that LEAs obtain written parental consent to invite RSA to the IEP meeting if the team in fact believes that RSA services are likely for that student. And then finally, 15 days before the IEP meeting, if consent is obtained from the parent, we recommend that the LEAs invite RSA representatives to the IEP meeting. There are several fields in the secondary transition planning tool. These fields are transition plan, whether the student has a transition plan in place or not, so that's going to be a yes or no field. The IEP end date, this is the expiration date for current IEP in the student's SEDS records. And then, of course, the 4 recommended timelines and events that were discussed on the previous slide, those are in the planning tool as well. So not the transition assessments due 90 days before the student's next IEP meeting, RSA consideration due 45 days before the student's next IEP meeting. That date is in the report. The parental consent for RSA invitation due, that's 30 days before the student's next IEP meeting. And then the RSA invitation due is 15 days before the student's next IEP meeting. So now I will display the report for you. So here I have a sample. This is what the report will look like. What I'm displaying now is a sample report. This is a mock-up. This is not real data. What we have here is, as you can see, I'm going to scroll up. So this report, there are 3 tabs in this planning tool. The first tab is all the students in your particular LEA that are 15 years old, that have and whether or not they have a transition plan in place. We have students who, in the second tab, this is anyone who is over the age of 16 that does not have a transition plan in place, so that your LEA can work urgently to get those transition plans in place according to the IDA regulations. And then finally, the third tab in the report is a report dictionary, just to explain for you the different fields, which I'm going to review now for you in the report. So that's here for you just so that you understand what this report is displaying. I'm going to go back to the first tab. And here again, this report is designed for LEAs to use to plan for the post-secondary needs of transition-age students and to assess the LEA's progress towards compliance with IDA Indicator 13. The report will run quarterly and include all students aged 15 years and older who have an IEP and are enrolled at an LEA in the District of Columbia. Independent charter LEAs will receive the LEA level report of their students, and DCPS will receive the report of DCPS students, as well as the LEA level reports for dependent charters. This report again lists demographic information, so the LEA, the attending school name, the school codes, the state ID, the USI for the student's name, grade, age, and date of birth. And then we have the fields. We have the IEP end date, when the student's 16th birthday is, and also if that birthday is before the IEP end date, so that you can prioritize at your LEA when you should hold meetings and if you need to do something before the student's IEP becomes due. And then we have a countdown in terms of the days until the student's 16th birthday and when their transition assessments are due. And then we have the following columns for RSA consideration. And these are all 90, 45, 30, and 15 days before the IEP date, end date over here. So this is the column that the report, these dates are coordinating to. You'll also see the report date. So this is the last date that this report was due. So for quarter 2, we pulled the data from SEDS on December 28th. And we also include an enrollment data error flag and also a duplicative to allow LEAs to know whether or not these are true compliance issues or if there's some data issues occurring in your data. And what you can do in this report, you also are able to filter in all of the columns to get to the most important information or what you're doing at the moment. So you can filter for all the students who have their 16 birthdays before the IEP end date. So here I'm going to select yes to see how many students have their 16th birthday coming up. So I want to, if this was one LEA's report, I would target these 28 students here and try to and work to get their transition plans in place before their 16th birthday, before that IEP. On the second tab, this is the same as the first tab, except we added a column here, a manual calculation for the student to say the days post their 16th birthday that the student does not have a transition plan in place. And so again, what we've included in this report, again, this is sample mock-up data, but what we've included here is enrollment flags and duplicative enrollment so that LEAs are able to understand what's a true compliance issue and then what's a data system or a data error so that you can work to, again, meet the needs of your students. And the demographic information, of course, is here in this report, in this planning tool. So, again, that's the report. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slides now. So as I mentioned before, the report will be produced quarterly beginning this month. Your LEA will receive your first report by January 11th. And the way you'll receive that report is going to be uploaded to the Secure File Transfer portal. Every LEA has access to this portal. If you're not sure who at your LEA has this access, please submit a ticket in the OSSE support tool, and we will work with you to make sure that you have you're able to access the report and download it from the SFTP site. Your LEA monitors will be reaching out individually during the month of January to review your report, answer any questions you may have, and problem solve with you about secondary transition and putting transition plans in place for students. And finally, OSSE will be available to provide additional on-site training by request. In case you didn't have it, your monitoring team contacts. So you can see this chart here, and again, this list, and a PDF of these slides will be sent to you after this webinar presentation. But here you have your monitoring team contacts. So in their contact information, you will have that. We also have contact information for our teaching and learning unit within the Elementary, Secondary, and Specialized Education Division at OSSE. So Ms. Selena Kettleson, if you have questions about secondary transition or secondary transition training, please reach out to Selena. If you have questions about the secondary transition planning tool and you have issues with the tool or you just want to know more information about it, you can reach out to me, Dr. Carmen Rowland, or Ms. Danielle Ireland, and our contact information, email, and phone numbers are listed there. And that's it. Thank you so much for participating today. We're going to hold on the line for a few moments to address any questions you have now. We'll just type them in the chat box, and we'll make sure to address them. Thank you again for your participation. Have a great day.